don't know if you can read.
Okay, that's my cue.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm sorry I'm over here. My name is Sandy Nelson, and I'm the corporate officer for the town of Sydney. And I'd like to call the SPAAC meeting of January 24th to order at 10 a.m. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that this meeting is held on the traditional territory of the Saanich First Nations. And the first item on the agenda basically is election of the chair. So, and vice chair. Before I proceed, though, I think it would be helpful if we all, we have a new member on the committee. So I think it would be great if we could all introduce ourselves and then we could start the nomination for the chair, if that's okay. And we can begin, I guess, Vanessa. How's it, Vanessa?
I'm Vanessa Pettinger. I'm a part of this committee. I'm completely blind. And yeah. And that's me.
You're from Sydney.
I'm from Sydney, yeah.
And Tracy.
I'm new. This is my first meeting. I'm Tracy. I wanted to be on this committee because I have a 13-year-old special needs son who is not wheelchair bound, but he is in a wheelchair and a walker. And so I wanted to have a voice for him. And yeah, and I live in Sydney. It's nice to be here. Yeah, welcome.
My name is Lorraine Brewster, and I'm the senior manager.
David Ryder, representing Sydney and the cognitive side of assisting.
And I'm sure you'll keep council liaison.
Trevor Parks, I'm the senior planner for the District of North Saanich. Phil DiBattista, councillor North.
Everybody, my name is Kyle Matuk. I'm the manager of Parks, Facilities, and Fleet for the District of Saanich.
Good morning, I'm Jared McTanovich, the Director of Planning and Building Services at Central Saanich.
Gordon, if you want to go ahead.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Gord Newton from Port McNeil this morning. Councillor with the District of Central Saanich.
Thank you. Emily Gorman, Director of Corporate Services and Corporate Officer for Central Saanich.
Corey Newcomb, Director of Community Planning and City.
David Willows, past chair of the committee and citizen representative from Central Saanich. I'm involved with the committee because I also have a 10-year-old son in the Saanich school system with cerebral palsy, who's a wheelchair user and has a number of other challenges. We should connect after.
Yes.
And I sit on the school district committee as well.
Nice.
And BC varies.
Nice.
I'm Jennifer Venice. I'm the Director of Schultz Center, Senior Services.
I'm Lee York. I'm a citizen representative from Sydney.
And I'm Charlene Froome, past vice chair and citizen representative of North Saanich. And I'm here because I am disabled.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for that. And Anna Morton is the recording secretary here, and she's from Sydney. So now I would like to call for a first time the nomination for chair. If there are any nominations for the position of chair. Calling once.
I'll nominate David Willows again if he's willing to stand and do another year of this.
I'll nominate, yeah.
Calling a second time for any nominees or just seconding that, okay. Third time. And I declare elected David Willows as chair.
Thank you for your confidence.
And I get to turn it over to David. Okay, he can make the nomination for vice chair.
Then I will open the floor now for nominations of vice chair for the committee.
Okay, I nominate Lee York for vice chair.
Did I get a seconder? Vanessa? Any other nominations?
I'll nominate Charlene if she wants to continue to do it.
Well, no, I'm happy to let. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy to share this. So thank you, Vanessa, but I think we'll let Lee have.
Yeah, whoever wants it.
Yeah.
So for a third time, any other nominations? Then acclamation. Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Yeah, Councilor Batista. Was that a motion or was that a
No,
comment?
in terms of the agenda.
Yeah.
Vanessa, was there something you wanted to add at the beginning of the?
I did. I don't want to be rude, but I'm gonna put an earbud in my ear so that on my phone I can listen to what's going on the agenda, but I don't want people to think I'm rude. So just wanted to point that out.
I think you're very rude.
We know each other.
Yeah. Yeah, we should say that.
Did you, I thought you were gonna put, this issue at the front of the agenda and talk a bit more about the technology that we use. So not necessarily now, but just asking David to put it on the agenda. And if there's any other things, then go back to you and you can explain how that in your
With
thing.
okay,
helps. Yeah.
Okay, so we're, so you're talking, you want to talk about your assistive device and technology? Okay,
Just in terms of, the medium.
does that go under other items then? Yeah, you can do that under other items?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other amendments or changes to the agenda? Okay, if not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councilor Batista, seconded by Lori Brewster, all in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, carried, thank you. Approval of the minutes. So hopefully everyone had a chance to review the minutes from the November 23rd, 2023 meeting. Does anyone have any comments or amendments on the minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes as presented? Councilor O'Keefe, seconded. Member Ryder, all in favor? Any opposed? Unopposed, carried. Rocketing. Awesome. All right, next item, number 6, accessibility plan. Good.
I don't think we have anything.
Nothing
specific.
to add to it? Okay. All the municipalities have their accessibility plans in place and we're working through implementation of various items now.
David, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to add that I think everybody in this room that's had a part of putting this committee together and the accessibility plan together should be commended for doing it. But I just wanted to sort of say that having this in place is not a finish line, it's the start line. There's lots of work that now has to go into making this committee be what it's intended for. So I think while we can be very proud, I think there's still lots of work to do to get it where it needs to be. So thank you, everybody, for your contributions.
Thank you very much, Shirley. That's very true. And yeah, we're here and we've got this committee, along with our constituent local government people, and a lot of work to do together. Okay, item 7, council referrals. Doesn't look like there's anything there. We can move on to number 8. So council updates, SPAAC tracking sheet. So on the agenda, towards the back, there's a list of all the action items that have come up through this committee and what the response or outcome's been with the local governments. It's provided primarily for information, but does anyone have any questions or comments that they wanted to make on it? Councilor O'Keefe?
So is this, I presume that council updates this is also the time that you report back to, I presume, to the committee on things that, like things that have referred and council's response back or other updates.
That could go under council, well, we got council updates, not
That's
necessarily,
fine.
not necessarily the tracking sheet, but the tracking sheet would inform on the council updates, I guess.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
Yeah.
council, if a member of council wanted to comment on any of the referrals,
oh, okay.
please use them.
Okay, or just some other, so,
Yeah.
so, and maybe this is also a question for staff in terms of, the tracking sheet, so. Would my assumption be correct that we just approved the November minutes? And so now that they're approved, that the items that were on the recommendations or whatever that were in November will then get transcribed and now get transcribed into the clean sheet. And I think. Like I was thinking about like the Bradford Park referral that we made, the committee made in November.
The most recent, yeah.
It is in there. Oh,
Okay, I'm looking at here, the tracking sheet goes up to September 27th.
yeah, and so,
Yeah.
yeah, so our November meeting wasn't there, and I presumed. And I presumed that was just because maybe we
Yeah,
haven't
November
approved,
should have been in there.
we haven't
Sorry.
approved the minutes. Okay,
Yeah, no, it should be.
oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
And so, well, and the other, I guess, in regards to that, because the committee did make recommendations to council, and so the protocol is how we report back officially. So as you may recall, we looked at the, quite a discussion about the Bradford Park design, and the committee made a number of recommendations. Council didn't approve all of them, but they did approve to increase the budget to allow for a rubberized surface and some accessible play structures as well. So thank you to the committee for your input, and because of that input, that playground will be a little bit more accessible for people. Oh, the other thing is, I don't know if I have reported back on the parking. So you may recall the committee made a referral to council about what could they do about parking and misuse of accessible parking. At the time, there wasn't, council struggled with what was the intent of, you know, what the committee was looking for. It was also noted that council or staff don't have authority over all parking in city, just street parking and lots. So at that time, council didn't direct staff to do anything. Since then, just at Monday's meeting, we reviewed the contract with Robin's Parking that we have, and I confirmed with staff that part of Robin's protocol is to issue tickets for cars that are parked in accessible spots without the sticker. So that happens on our street parking and in our lots. And just by coincidence, I walked out of the coffee shop yesterday, and there was the Robbins lady was there giving somebody a ticket to somebody on Bevan. And I just asked her, I said, hey, just curious, you know, are you also ticketing an accessible spot? And you'll be happy to know that she gets really fired up about people parking in accessible spots that shouldn't be there. And she said that Robbins has the contract for all of the parking in Sydney, so Save on Foods and Thrifties, Fairways. So she says we cover all of the parking, and she said there's nothing that makes me more furious when I see a car in one of those spaces without an accessible pass. She said no hesitation of ticketing them. So it sounds like that's being.
Two questions for you, Terry, on that one. How can we issue a ticket to a snowplow? And can I get her phone number?
I was actually thinking in my head, I wonder how it went with the snow and the.
Yeah. Well,
spots.
you know, so prior to, on the topic of parking, so prior to knowing that the snow was coming, I was at Save On, and I had talked to the manager last year about this. And I said, hey, remember me and having snow, and I said, just a reminder, you know, he said, so we could keep in mind. He said, yeah. And I did go do a scoot through the parking lot, and I think they seem to do a better job. So I saw a couple, but I think it was better than last.
And I just add to the parking thing too. Kudos to whoever does Central Saanich and the senior center and library there, because that parking lot had all the accessible parts cleared out and the access to it. So kudos to that as well. So we are seeing some improvement in this, and it's nice to see that. So kudos to you guys.
Baby steps.
Yeah.
And then just more, council update from me, just as a FYI, so council discussed, there's a proposal for EV charging stations to be put on the Mary Winsphere Park. And so staff will be talking to Mary Winsphere to get the space there, and also dealing with BC Hydro, and council has asked staff to consult with staff on the design, so whenever, I don't know when that will be, but at some point, so brush up on EV charging stations.
Are there any accessible EV charging stations right now?
I don't think there's any that are specifically designed that way.
I looked on, I have to look before preparation for the on the BC Hydro website. And they have new design criteria that includes all the accessibility. And they're also encouraging their hardware producers to do the same, so
Okay.
lowering the charging handles
Okay.
and separating screens would be good too. And making sure there's no curves and all that sort of thing.
Okay.
Wider spots identified for handicap.
Yeah.
Parking, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So anyway, so that'll be for discussion whenever, staff have to work, consult with BC Hydro and we'll work on the design, and then at some point we'll come back here for your comments. That's all from me.
Thanks, Terry, and just for staff as well, if you want some information, I'm happy to do some digging. I know the US Access Board, which oversees the standards for the Americans with Disabilities Act, also has some guidance on accessible EV charging and that, so. Right on. Anything from North Saanich? Are you still with us there, Gordon? Anything from Central Saanich?
Certainly a couple of things, and I will give full credit to Ms. Gorman that prepared a little bit of this background, but Central Saanich's web portal has, from an accessibility sort of email standpoint, has been activated with the new website, and we've received 4 emails around this, and staff are working through that. The accessibility plan, as we all know, has been adopted, and draft financial plan has set funds aside for implementation, depending on the items that come forward through the committee. Jarrett, or Mr. Matanowicz, is here today to bring up and start the Parks and Trails Master Plan discussion that's beginning with Central Saanich. And the SPAAC BC grant has been applied for by the district and has already identified training for staff and communications for staff, and will finalize the use of that funds. And I'm sure that will be shared with the other districts. As another comment, it was brought up that some of the decorations that are painted around buildings, whether they're municipal or private, may actually impact and block where the signage is for opening doors for the automated doors. And so I brought this forward to the district because I think it was Lorraine that pointed out that we didn't have any signage for access into the municipal hall. And when I looked around with the facilities manager, in fact, the lovely festive holiday painting that was on the building, in fact, blocked the signage for where the door handle was. So just again, an observation and things that we're still learning and seeing. So hopefully that won't happen next year. And I think that's all I have to report from my end.
Councilor King.
Board question, how much are you allocating in the budget for accessibility?
We don't know because it hasn't been finalized. And so again, just reading the notes, the endorsement of the budget is later this year. And that was, again, part of the recommendation of the accessibility plan.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe it's 20,000 right now earmarked for, I know initiatives identified through the year. That's of course, council has to review the budget, through a lengthy process over the next few months. And I can say that this Park BC grant, we did receive it yesterday. So we're working with local service providers on customizing training for Saanich staff, and we'll share that with our partners at SPAAC, as well as assistive devices in our council chambers, where the other half is earmarked for.
Awesome. Oh, thank you, Gord. Okay, other items. So now we come to Jared, Director of Planning for Central Saanich, who's here to, and Kyle, so I can't remember your last name.
Which are this?
Great. And they're going to talk to us about the Parks and Trails Master Plan for Central Saanich.
Okay, thank you. I won't turn my camera on and most in this room, and Gord knows what I look like from seeing him. I'll share my screen quickly here. So, everyone can see the PowerPoint presentation. How's that? Okay. Some slideshow. There we go. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Again, thank you. I'm Jared Peninsula, the Director of Planning and Building Services with Central Saanich. I'm joined by Kyle, who's our Manager of Parks, Facilities, and Fleet. Together with our team, we're working on Central Saanich's Parks Master Plan. So today we're here to really hear from you. We're going, the presentation is very light on information we're providing. And really the reason for that is because we're early in our project. We're gathering information and input from the community. And then that is helping us move to our next phase where we're starting to draft our Parks Master Plan. So this is an excellent opportunity for us to hear issues around accessibility in the community areas where we need to improve, and just general input around infrastructure, parks, and our assets that we have that we can make it better. So just briefly move through. So as I said, this is phase one of our engagement, fall and winter, and of this year. We started in 2023, sort of near the end of summer, and have been working with our community to this point so far to develop some ideas. So we've already done our introductions. I can cruise over that part, but as part of this, we'll give you a very brief project overview, and as I said, a roundtable discussion, and then we'll talk about next steps. This isn't the only time that we'll be before this committee. Once we have a draft plan, we'll come back and have you look at it for us and provide more input to help shape it as we go forward. So the District of Central Saanich's current Parks Master Plan is from 1996, so it's quite aged. So it's definitely time to undertake a new project, and we initiated this. We're calling it a Parks and Trails Master Plan. So it's not just our park spaces, but trail connections that are not on roads, so not active transportation so much, bike lanes and that sort of thing. It's the connections between our park spaces and our communities that are through forested areas or through cul-de-sacs, all those types of connections, as well as beach access. That's another major component of this project, looking at how people get to the water and the accessibility to those spaces. So we're in phase one right now, which is our engagement and exploring ideas. As I said, we started that in the fall of last year. In phase two, we are going to be moving that into the winter and spring once we have. Basically, what we'll be doing is preparing a what we heard report and taking that to council and having a council workshop to really have a discussion about what we heard from the community and what the priorities of this plan should be, and then moving forward from there to start drafting the plan. We anticipate this project wrapping up, it says fall 2024, but I'm sure a lot of you are aware that housing legislation has come out and we're just scrambling the last few months, and this has pushed the project back. So we anticipate by the end of 2024, we may have this project completed, but there's no rush. We want to get it right. That's the key for this project for us. So some of the current engagement we've been doing, we've been having many meetings with community partners and really trying to special interest groups, for example, this committee, where there's a focus on special concerns and issues that we want to try to address. Other examples, we've met with some housing providers, some affordable housing providers. Is there people that live in those residents have often different needs that need to be addressed? Met with equestrian community, the dog community. There's a group that was created oh, pardon me. We're running into some technical difficulties. Bear with me. I'm gonna have to stop sharing so I can reshare. Sorry. Okay. I'll just go to where it was.
Familiar with tech issues in the
Yeah.
community.
Not alone then. So yeah, those community partner meetings have been really valuable to us in terms of gathering specific information from groups we might not hear from. Obviously, various internal departments who are working, really Parks crosses our engineering department, our corporate services, our planning department. So really getting all of that input from our various internal departments. One thing we did, which we haven't done before, for the Parks Master Plan, is we held an open house for all staff to come and attend over a morning. Which was something that I think was really well received by our staff. Public Works, everybody was able to attend, or was invited to attend and provide their input. We held a public open house, which was very well attended, and a survey. I think we have over 400 responses to the survey to help shape this plan. We're reaching out to organized sports groups and parks user groups, Panorama. I see Lorraine down there, definitely communicating with her through this project. And schools, we've been in Keating Elementary, we've been in Stellies, and so we're reaching out to our youth departments as well, and as well as First Nations. We just sent a letter to the band chiefs yesterday. We've been engaging at the staff level, so we anticipate visiting our First Nation partners on this as well as we go forward. So some of the work we've been doing to this date and continuing to build on that. So the district has done a few strategic projects over the course of the last few years to really start to get input that does relate to parks, and we're going to be building off of that through this project. We completed our community plan review in 2023, and there was a lot of information about parks and even accessibility was some of those matters were identified during that. Our active transportation plan and our signage plan are also helping to inform this project. So some of the previous input we've been hearing that we'll build off of is through the sign strategy. It was improved signage trail information as our overall arching sign plan. And even as far as providing some trail difficulty signage and accessibility information in our parks. So people are aware of where they can get to and where they can go and what works in terms of an accessibility standpoint. Basically, improves accessibility to our parks and within, but especially to, we've heard that some of our parks there have, maybe there's a park lot road, but to actually get into the park or get from our village cores to our parks are not, doesn't work for people that have accessibility challenges. Climate action was a major part of this as well. Consider that into our Parks Master Plan, and then be compatible and enhance the active transportation plan. And that's another key factor. Our active transportation plan is on our roads, so it's our bike lanes, our sidewalks, crosswalks, access to schools, that sort of thing. But our trails and our parks are corridors to those active transportation plans. So how it links with that plan is pretty critical in this plan as we go forward. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Kyle. And what Kyle's going to do is he's going to first touch on a few other accessibility issues we've heard about. And then we're going to lead you through some discussion questions. And we're really looking forward to hearing from you. And if there's other ideas you have that are captured by some of these questions, feel free to jump in. We'll be taking notes and really listening and have a good discussion. So I'll pass it over to Kyle.
Thanks, Jared. Yeah, like Jared said, the next section is we're trying to brainstorm and get as much input as possible. So if you think of anything else that's outside of these questions, feel free to jump in. But some of what we've been hearing about improving accessibility up to this point have been the importance of accessibility within the trail rating, highlighting what is the current trail grade and surface conditions. Obviously, any improvements that we can make to trails are important, but it's also abundantly important to have accurate representation of what those trail grades are in surface conditions and as it changes throughout the connectivity throughout the region. The importance of the playground and equipment and the design around that and how that's quickly evolving in an important way. Washrooms having enough washrooms, having them accessible, having them in the right locations, accessible recreation and facilities. So when we start looking at things like sports and those other type of facilities and the importance of that, and then availability and location of parking and access to the parks as well, against surface conditions and all that good stuff that touches on. Does anybody want to jump in? Do you have anything at this point before we jump to the next one, which we start to get into the questions? Okay. Perfect. Okay. This is where we're hoping to get as much input as possible from you all. What do you like about our parks and trail systems when looking at the district of Central Saanich?
I'll break this.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've talked to John Law previously about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the gravel surfacing that the district uses, the compacted, I think it's 6-inch minus and then the pathway mix on top. I wish more places would use that because it creates almost like a concrete surface that's still permeable. I've noticed that you guys have put it in even parts like the beach access by the end of it's Mount Newton Crossroad last year or the year before. So no, that's I like that. It's a cost-effective way to be able to expand that accessible network for Central Saanich.
Sure, that's great. That's great to hear. Any other thoughts?
I have to say that last time I was in Centennial Park, I wasn't in a wheelchair. It was over 40 years ago. So, but I do have occasion we are going to be going. One thing I know with like the park areas and situations, if new picnic tables and stuff are going in, there are options where the bench is cut out by one, so somebody in a wheelchair can actually pull up to the picnic table and participate instead of having to be served and then so kind of looking at just simple little things like that make a huge difference to families that want to be able to use the park systems for recreation or festivities that are going on.
Yeah, for sure. And picnic tables, it's an important part of our park system for picnicking and having a good snack and enjoying the environment. Is there any specific designs of picnic tables or ones that you've seen around the community, maybe outside of Central Saanich, that you're like, that they really did it right? That's an awesome design. Okay.
Yeah, just a question, I guess a clarification to the process.
Yeah.
Are you anticipating, I imagine you are, interfacing with other groups that might be doing similar studies or have already done reviews, the pros and cons, things they recommend, solutions that they've maybe found?
Yeah,
I know, for instance, the 9 owners got their plan already in place for up to 6. Not that it's, the leader in the group, but I'm just wondering whether that group might be able to say, don't go here, or maybe this is similar to, or whatever, it might lead the way to some of the comments that we may not get from the public. And the other thing I know from other reviews that I've been doing, there's other organizations and provinces that have done pretty remarkable studies of parks and pathways and things like that. Ontario has got various things in there where they've really gone into detail, not that it's pick out the roof here, but it may, provide a light bulb. The other one is the National Recreation and Parks Association that's got some really good documents on interface between trails and parks and accessibility kind of as an overlay to it. And the other one I'll throw out there just because I have considerable family in the state of California. They've got some fantastic parks and recreation facilities there that are fairly new. I've been a number. They've done a remarkable job on surfaces, accessibility, multi-family use, not just from an accessibility perspective. And they've done a lot of work down there in studies too. And I found going through it, they have questions coming from here, and all of a sudden you say, hey, I hadn't thought of this, that's really great. So, it just might move things forward and then give you another overlay.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'll take the second half of the meeting.
Sure, yeah,
So-
thank you.
For the second half, I agree with you that the work and information that's coming out of the US. Unfortunately, there's not as much happening up here, but some of the really good playground examples that I've seen about universal design going beyond basic levels of accessibility are coming out of the US. There's some awesome projects. I agree.
Yeah, any information like that you can provide, we have to press like that. But as part of this, so we do have a consulting team working for us, that have really good extensive experience in developing parks master plans. That's helpful to us. Part of this is, also doing best practices, so we are looking at other organizations. I haven't made note of Nanaimo though, so we'll look at Nanaimo. But we have looked at other parks master plans across the country that, you know, are some elements that are important. And we'll continue to do so. We're also, you know, in communication with our neighbors, so North Saanich, we're taking a parks master planner now as well, so we're in discussions with them. Sydney, as Corey and I have chatted, but they've recently done some minor work around their parks and are continuing to do so. BC Parks are in Central Saanich, so coordinating them as well as Saanich, so we're trying to coordinate that together. Connectivity is important, but yeah, looking at best practices is critical. Project. It's a very good point.
Well, NRPA is one organization. Accessibility Canada. .ca. We can do a whole bunch of stuff that way as well.
Yeah, on that note, to the National Accessibility Secretariat, I don't know if they've published them yet, but they are, but he's working on there's a draft out of the current outdoor spaces accessibility standard. So that wouldn't necessarily apply here, but it's a federal standard, federal properties, yes.
Yeah. They actually have just remember one document from NRPA's, they have a document that's measures to evaluate park use and quality. That interface is good.
So then Lorraine and then Gloria.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to add to the resource list, and I'm probably you're aware of it, but the Canadian Parks and Recreation is quite a valuable tool as well, because, you know, it's sort of focusing on, you know, the Canadian best practices. But just back to the question, what do you like about our parks and trail system? I think the nice thing about Centennial Park, and you see other, like what we're seeing, the trends in parks and recreation, similar to trends in our facilities, is the hub piece. And what I think is what makes Centennial Park outstanding is the fact that you can go there and do many things. So you've got the forested area to sort of for that mental health piece, you know, that walkability. You've got the playground piece. You've got the future sport box in there. You know, there's many uses, and we're seeing that more on the mainland as opposed to get in your car and go several places to get several experiences. So what I like in Central Saanich is that kind of that sort of that hub thinking. What can we build upon that space that we have so many and sort of multi-generational uses as well? Families, kids, older adults. But that's what I would say is I think that's a real benefit to the community, and kind of looking at that space to see, you know, how can we there and how can we build upon that.
Great. I think we've got a great start there. So I agree.
Councillor Newton.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess I hadn't thought about this before, and about the sort of the trail rating or the accessibility rating. And so while I'm not, you know, someone with mobility challenges, but I just would be curious if that's something that is if there's a standard, much like on a ski hill where you have a green or a blue or a black, if there's a benefit to that as far as a trail rating from the accessibility standpoint. So if someone is new to the community, they will know that there's accessible trails around, but what sort of grades may be involved or the condition of the trail. So I don't know if that's a benefit or not, but I kind of like that idea if that's and again, I'm not looking to try and reinvent the wheel. If there's standardized sort of markings and stuff, then absolutely, I think that that's something to be considered.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And there are, with trails, from what I've seen, there's many different standards and organizations have taken similar but different approaches to it in its complexity, ranging from very basic to very complex. I previously came from Parks Canada, and they're in progress of doing a big review of the trail standards, and it's a fairly in-depth and quite I'd say borders on complicated way of doing it. But I think there's some great examples that we can pull from different agencies to keep it consistent. Yesterday we were going through an exercise, even just talking about the parks, how we're classifying them or naming them, and the culture around that, and the guiding principles that we were using, sticking to similarities from our community partners around here, so that it's consistent for the. So it sounds all similar when you're traveling from district to district.
Great, and following up on that, and I know that staff's involved with it, but I just think having that continuity around trails where they do, or pathways where they do cross borders or cross into a provincial park or a regional park, that just trying to create that continuity about accessibility or even connectivity is really important. So it's great that sort of North Saanich and Central Saanich are sort of going through this process at the same time.
Sure. I agree. Awesome, thank you.
Is there a website right now that you could go to find accessible parks and playgrounds?
As it relates to the district of Central Saanich?
Sure, or anywhere. I just was curious.
I don't think so, but perhaps through this, for Central Saanich in particular, we could build on that and have something like, if there was signage, we could put that on our parks website and really have a map that specifically shows the ratings if we get there. But at this moment, I'm not aware of anything.
Well, I think the only thing that I've seen is if you sort of Google accessible parks, then you get like parents writing up a blog about an accessible park in their community. And yeah. Charlene, Terry, and then Lauren.
I just want to say there are, like, I know in the interior, there's some parks and trails that have been done and adapted for wheelchair users. There was an article in Spin Magazine a couple of issues ago about it, on how they've done it. Destination BC is really promoting accessible tourism. So I think like a system, like say, that rates it would be really valuable for people that are traveling to know that, oh, we could go to Central Saanich and have a lovely holiday. We've got Bouchard Gardens, we've got trail systems we can use, and an access to see that rating, I think is very valuable.
Awesome. That's great input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair. I love the comments about working with other municipalities and trying to come up with a, common standard for how we classify these things. And I know, and maybe Lorraine was going to mention this, but I understand the CRD is doing a review of their parks and playground. And I was just thinking what would be really great is having sort of a standard or a way that all municipalities on the Saanich Peninsula, like, these are the consideration, these are the things that we will include when we're looking at our parks. And so in Sydney, our Parks Master Plan was done a number of years ago. And so it's on our to-do list to kind of review that again, and perhaps from an accessibility standard. So it would be great if Central Saanich or Saanich are going through this already, and there's some sort of common approach, and maybe that's something that Panorama might kind of pull together. So
Yeah, I'll just, maybe I'll chair it.
yeah.
So in last year, Central Saanich actually brought forward a notice of motion to look at basically having the commission's role oversee recreation facilities and services on the peninsula. And there was quite a bit of a discussion around that last year with the CAOs of the 3 municipalities. And where we've landed with that going into this year, and you know, I'm sure, Jared, you probably have kind of heard this, but is that the commission just passed for our budget going forward to this year, that we'll be hiring a consultant to basically provide a needs assessment of the recreation facilities and for future recreation facilities, or what we already have on the peninsula and where those gaps are. Things like playing fields, tennis courts, not really getting into the green park spaces, but bringing that information back to the commission so that there could be some discussion and future planning in terms of recommendations going forward. So that's kind of, you know, folding into the tennis courts and some of the playgrounds, et cetera, and looking, you know, is that because we have a commission that oversees our recreation services for the peninsula, we sort of within our facilities, we don't really, your city has tennis courts, or Saanich has tennis courts and pickleball courts, and Saanich has their own sort of facilities. So really bringing that piece under the commission to kind of oversee and plan for the future. What I say around the accessibility piece is that in our world, no matter what we do, we have that lens on it now. And we've been doing that for years, you know, doing that previously, but even now going forward. And, you know, the ideal world is anything that we look at in terms of parks and recreation systems and trails. I think we just, you know, really need to have a framework in that lens. But I don't know if that answers. And I don't know, Jared, if you've heard sort of some information about that piece.
Not new information. No, I don't have much more than what you.
Yeah, so I'm going to be meeting with the CAOs of the 3 municipalities. We'll be putting together kind of a terms of reference, a scope, and then we'll be going out and looking at hiring a consultant to sort of provide that. So I think there's some links for sure. And, you know, we don't want to, you know, and sort of timing pieces to go out and have those conversations.
Excellent. Yeah. And Lorraine sits on our Parks and Environment Committee that we have at Central Saanich, and this will link into that. This project links into that committee, so Lorraine will be able to help shape that with us as well. That component going to the panorama recreation.
I chime in just to talk about your barriers and to go back to the piece of picnic tables.
Yeah.
What's an idea is, I know is, I think it was Nanaimo or Parksville. They use, like, instead of a square concrete slab, it's a rectangle concrete slab, and they put picnic table at one end so that the wheelchair accessible person can have the end of the picnic table. Just an idea. Barriers. I don't, this is just from a mom's perspective, right? I don't know your budget, but please do not use gravel or those wood chips. They suck.
It's a common thing
They
here.
suck.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to bring up is, I don't know, I have been to Central or Centennial Park a few times, but here in Sydney, when you're going on the pathways, especially the bike path, when you're crossing roads, there's like a switchback. I don't know what it's called, but they're made out of steel, and it's like a switchback to get like a way around. They're really tight. If you can put that in your kind of thing to, I don't know, make it wider for not only wheelchairs. My son is also in a specialized bike, and we are very outdoorsy. And the bike was gifted to us by Help Field a Dream, because it was about a $23,000 specialized bike that we couldn't afford. But anyway, it's long. It's just a little bit longer, so it's like a tricycle, but the front wheel is a little longer, and so to get through those switchbacks.
Yeah.
A little bit challenging.
Yeah, I think those are the barriers to stopping big vehicles and other things.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I was
Yes.
wondering
Yeah.
about that.
But up
Yeah.
in split rail and
Yeah.
other types of materials,
Yes.
but yeah.
I don't know what they're called.
And that's a good segue. We might as well move on to this next portion, which is, what do you think are the most significant barriers to access with parks and trail systems?
Mhm.
Have any thoughts there? Surface conditions being. The wood chips.
I think you already mentioned this, but you talked about accessibility to the park itself. And that seems to be the thing that's missing in most parks. I'm not that familiar with Central Saanich parks, but you typically have a parking lot and then quite a range of grounds with various undulations and things are difficult to traverse. Not just in a wheelchair, but even if you're if you have some mobility, but you have balance issues, you get level to stumble. So it's important to get a good service between the parking lot and the park. I'd say the other thing that I really appreciate, and I recognize there's not going to be resources to make every trail accessible to disabled person, but it's important to me to at least be able to get into the park and maybe have a viewpoint or a place to sit while the rest of my family enjoys their hike. I'm at least in a pleasant place where I can look at the ocean or look at the surroundings and enjoy a peaceful half hour or so. And as far as I appreciate the idea of getting a consistent approach to qualifying the various trails about how difficult they are. This might be almost too basic, and please feel free to laugh if you like, but from my point of view, I just need to know if I can get down the trail without getting stuck, and if I get stuck, I have a way to get out. So in green and red and black and all the rest of that stuff has to have some basic meaning that indicates I'm safe to go down there or I'm not.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Vanessa?
I have this app called Access Now, but it's just getting bigger and it's all about like, it'll tell you the hotels in Sydney, places to go, the parking, if it's accessible. Like, for example, the Travelodge in Sydney, parking lot is not great for accessible, but the rooms make up for it because the rooms are bigger. So it tells you all about things around Canada. And I don't know from experience, but maybe there's an option about the parks that tells you which just worth looking into. The app's called Access Now. It's a really cool one. Just a thought.
Thanks, Vanessa. And actually sort of building on that, just to provide some context, with our family, because my son uses a wheelchair. My wife and I, or my daughter and I will go out and check out a park first, so it's too good to know if we can go someplace. And that's with a lot of places too, you know, looking at going out for a family dinner, we have to go and check out a restaurant at the time, where can we park and all that sort of stuff, because we've also got a side grab van. So having that information ahead of time, I think that's often the very first barrier that we come to, is just that dealing with that anxiety of, you know, daughters at a baseball game at Centennial Park, and you know, if we hadn't been there before, are we going to be able to find a place to park the van? Is there going to be a path there, in a spot where my son can sit in his wheelchair and watch his sister play ball on that? So you know, that information piece I think is really a key piece.
So you made me think.
Yeah.
So would it help if when you went to click on a park, we'll go in there, that was actually pictures or a little video of, you know, here, you know, accessibility features, and then you see a clip, I don't know if it's a video or pictures of, here's what the parking lot looks like, here's the access path.
That actually is really helpful, because the access means different things to different people, you know, and like there's one person within Victoria here that does reviews of restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
She keeps talking about a fully accessible bathroom, and I said, well, having that outside change table. You know, and so,
Yeah.
but I hate the term fully accessible. Nothing's fully accessible, just, you can't do that.
Yeah.
It's always gonna be someone who's not gonna work.
So,
Yeah.
so the pictures, you know, the classification system is good, like you say, but then as Lee has said, and you've said, and Tracy said, you know, depending on your particular situation, a green trail classification might not necessarily meet, but if you have pictures that you say, oh yeah, well, that looks okay, or this might be a problem.
Charlie?
I was just gonna expound on that. I do the same thing. I either have to take a second trip because I do a survey before I know I have to be somewhere. But the other thing to the pictures is I also do a Google search. And if I can get a street view so that I can look around and see what their parking lots are and what the access is to there. So I think that is hugely valuable because it has saved me that second trip scouting thing. So again, it's people with kids in wheelchairs, but we've also got parents with kids, you know, parents in wheelchairs with kids that they want to access these things too. So I like the picture idea a lot and the interactive, so I can scout that place out first, like, oops, not gonna work.
Yeah.
So
Especially if you're sort of not in the area to scout it out, right?
yes,
Like my family 2 years ago went to Kingfisher, not to say anything bad about Kingfisher, but anyway, I booked an accessible, like wheelchair accessible room. And then we got there and the patio has a 2-foot drop to the beach. It's like, oh, that's great, right? But to just have wording, I love that, the idea of pictures. Because then you can sit there and like, okay, I can get out of here. Can I, you know, visualize yourself in that situation?
More detail. It's hard to go up to Kingfisher for a scouting trip.
Yeah, yeah, right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, so just take your word that, you know, you book an accessible room or accessible anything, right? Oh, we're wheelchair accessible. But then you get there and
oh, except you can't get in the bathroom.
yes.
Or should I?
Just one thing with that, and then, Councilor Batista, I've been working on a project through the Kite Institute, I think it was, Parks Canada, called the Accessible Parks Program or Accessible Parks Plan. And there's talk about all sorts of things like you know, the Google guys go through with the backpack with the 360 cameras.
Yeah.
So the people that can't get out into the parks can still experience them. Some of the stuff in the parks. Way out there, but might be a way to.
I think, previous to when I was at Parks Canada, they had filmed some locations like East Point and done a walkthrough Sydney Island and stuff like that. By the way, this is absolutely fantastic. My mind's going directions. If all that stuff was accessible on Google, where you can pre-scout along with a bunch of comprehensive information behind the scenes on the website. I think that would link it together.
Councilor Batista.
A little more off topic, I guess, but more general about the conversation. So I think, or correct me if I'm wrong, but they came up with the rec commission when we were doing Jubilee Park. And then we were talking about Green Glade and talking about the accessibility components of actually doing a regional map for the peninsula so that people could know what is accessible, what is there, what the options are. So you don't have to do a recce ahead of time. You could just go to the map. It could be a link on all of our websites to be like, oh, I'm going to Centennial Park. What options are there for me, right? We just did rubberized surface at Jubilee Park. And then it prevents the second trip type of thing, which is something I'd love to see, which I know is gonna come up for me. That Trevor's gonna have to deal with. But just something that as we're here as a regional approach, everybody should be able to play and see photos, see a 360 view and know what is and isn't there. So they don't show up and go, well, no, I've got nothing. Now you're on the hunt for a service that you can access. I don't know, not that it's completely relevant to specifically the Central Saanich, what you guys are doing, but I think they should cross between yours and ours and Sydney's and just.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Terry, then Dave. And then Vanessa.
I was just, I don't have, I just want to introduce the topic of beaches and beach access. And I don't know what to recommend, but I'm just bringing it up because I know committee members have talked about that before, so I just provide the opportunity if you have comments.
Do we have any beach mats on the peninsula?
Beach access?
Beach mats.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, that's one thing that I just hear about from the community, and so I wonder if committee members have any, comment or specific comments about that in terms of getting down there.
No, it's come up in North Saanich very recently. We were
Yeah.
talking about our Parks Master Plan.
Yeah.
And there's some improvements that happen in one of our beach access points, and accessibility was quite a large conversation with that. I don't think we ever came to a conclusion there, but it is becoming quite a conversation, and I think we have to acknowledge that there's just some, like, North Hill is almost completely inaccessible, and that's okay. That there's,
You're not gonna get every.
you're not gonna get everything, but I think what we have to highlight is that if we can, we need to, and that was one of the conversations we had about, was the name of that beach that I was also. So,
Last beach.
no, it's in Ardmore.
Go down Ardmore.
Last beach is Cold Bay.
It's what Coles Bay, yeah.
Okay. CRD park, yeah.
But it's one of those things where we're doing improvements to the roadway for parking and thinking about all those things, but beach access is becoming more and more relevant. And again, if you have a map that says, yeah, if you want to go to the beach, here are the 2 spots or 3 spots or 4 that are absolutely accessible compared to don't go to the end of Amity.
Yeah.
You just like those little components I think are gonna be important for yours and for ours, because the amount of times you see people and they're like, how am I supposed to get down there? You're not, right? Where can I go? No idea, right?
That speaks to Lee's point as well about, having that viewpoint or something, if you can't get down. Yeah.
Yeah, that's part of the challenge is like, in a lot of our jurisdictions, on the peninsula, you've got a lot of high bank.
Yeah.
So where you've got high bank, you get accessibility down to the beach.
Like Amherst.
Like from just from an
Yeah,
operational.
Amherst
standpoint,
Beach is.
Every time. It's not that it's not that it's not important, it's not that it should be attempted and work appropriate, but it's gonna jump.
Yeah, Lee, and I'll come back to
Board has a question too.
Gord as well. Thanks.
The perfect place for a beach manager on the peninsula is Island View.
Mm,
It's a no-brainer.
yeah.
Okay, so, Dave?
Just to follow up on Vanessa's app, I think an auditory script of some sort.
That's what I was
That's
gonna
a
say.
great
I was like, videos are great, but
Yeah.
I
Right,
can't
of
see that, but if there's.
Pictorial is good.
Yeah.
It's an improvement over hunting it out yourself, but I think
Look
for
at
a
that.
lot of people, for
Yeah.
a lot of reasons, a lot of ages and so forth,
Mhm.
something like that. It's simple,
Mhm.
descriptive, and easily found would be really appropriate.
Thank you.
Never think.
Vanessa?
That's what I was gonna say. I was
Yeah.
like, these videos are great, but if we could have something that gives you a brief description, like audible, to say, the terrain is going to be this, and the incline and
Mhm.
declines will be about this, so be prepared for that. There are tree branches across, so watch your step and little things like that.
Sorry, Terry, you had your hand up previously as well.
No, I
Okay,
was just, no.
okay, and then Gord.
Thank you, and great conversations. And to follow up on Lee's point, and I'm always reminded when we have these conversations about the comments we had around benches being great benchmarks for walking, and even not just for people with accessibility issues, but just slow mobility in general. To the beach mat component, and again, looking at this from the peninsula side of things, that's a great opportunity. Obviously, that there's areas that are more appropriate to use that, as was identified with Island View. An opportunity for shared costs when we're looking at this, so that we can pool the resources and say, okay, well, maybe this is something that is only available in North Saanich, but this benefits all of the municipalities on the peninsula. So again, the collaboration side of things, I think, is great to have, so that we can say, maybe it's not necessarily something that's in Central Saanich or in North Saanich, but again, regionally in the Island View would be an example of, that's a CRD park. So the cost there, but if there's opportunities for us to look at pooling resources collectively for the peninsula for one specific, project that would be beneficial. I think that that's something to be considered.
Thank you, Gord. Councilor Keith?
Thank you, Joe. Just getting back to the washrooms, I presume they will have changing places component or?
We're in the process, we're in the early stages.
So I would say.
I think that's important to have in
And
there.
I know, I was looking at the updates that are coming in the BC building code, in terms of accessibility, and I know that's not till 2025, I believe. But one of the things I saw there was, adult size change tables everywhere. So I presume that would in funds as well, so just mention that. The other thing, and I don't know too much about it, but I'll just raise it as something to look into, is when we were looking at Redford Park design, and one of the things, I don't know if it was in resources that you provided, David, but they were talking about landscaping and the different types of plants, and that there's some people who have their disability has got to do with really bad allergies or hypersensitive to certain sorts of things. And so there was some recommendations. I don't know if it was in a Rick Hansen guide or something about certain things to stay away from and consideration. So
So that was I believe it's called the Opals allergen score, OPALS.
Oh.
And it rates plants on a scale of how allergenic they are to most people. I was just looking at the new CSA Z614 standard, which is the playground standard, and I noticed that they've now got some plants and stuff in there. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. And I think that's mostly around plants to avoid around playgrounds. Things that are prickly or poisonous.
Is there anything else that folks can think about? Questions or comments around barriers to access?
Only comment I'd add would be from an implementation standpoint. A lot of, on the implementation side with surfacing materials, et cetera, you can often get a lot more buy-in when you're catering to a larger cohort. And having 3 kids, I can tell you that I would often look at parks that were identified as fully accessible when I had my kids in strollers and things like that, because the same challenges you're facing, I'm facing with gravel, et cetera, because gravel sucks. So those things that actually was part of the scope that I would look for. Because it's always fun having my kids wake up because of public services, et cetera. So those types of things come into play. It's good now you can cater to actually a certain cohort of parents and children, plus accessibility. So
you know what? That's such a good point, and I think a good reminder, because when we talk about accessibility, we we're looking at what automatically comes to mind is wheelchairs, physical, people with disabilities, but it's also accessibility for young families with strollers. So that's a good point.
What you're talking about is called the curb cut effect. And that was as curb cuts started coming in at intersections and that it identified, it wasn't just for people with disabilities, it was families with strollers, it's delivery people with ollies and the automatic doors now that you've got going in many places. It was done for accessibility initially, but now, everyone benefits when their arms are full of. Exactly, yeah. Or if your arms are full with groceries, right? Your reusable bags. Anyone else?
The next one, I think we've touched on a lot, but I'll ask the question just in case you can pull out any more of this fantastic information that we're getting is, what do you think are the top factors we should consider as we plan for the future of our parks and trails? We definitely talked about connectivity between not just the parks, but districts and keeping common terminology and keeping consistent throughout the region. I think that's important.
I'll jump in. Unique experiences, and this is something that was talked about with Breathor and Greenglade. making sure that the two parks are relatively close together and trying not to just duplicate the same experience.
Mm.
You know, and, yeah, so the Peninsula is still a relatively small area, so having that ability to have different experiences without having to travel out, say, to Sioux or something like that.
Yeah, I guess, I've been in Central Saanich, so, one thing would be expansion. So things like, Human Park, so the master plan of that call for trail. Implementation of trail networks along the north side and then a loop trail. That's gonna be a different experience than you get Centennial. Yeah, but it's still, so, but it's another option. It's going, like, again, from a family standpoint, going to the same place every time, like it's old. So you want to be able to vary it.
One thing that I don't know if is on the website now that might be sort of a quick and easy sort of initial indicator is to know whether the park is developed or undeveloped. You know, and then the only thing comes like Centennial Park is being a developed park with an undeveloped park, but if you look at the something on Mount Newton, Butterfield Park, that's, I would consider that an undeveloped park. The trails are very rustic.
Yeah. And then there's the historical component, so you get all the different values of it.
That's Terry Memorial.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is top factor, but just something that I had thought about, and it's kind of more to do with the contracting process. Because when I was at UBC, the last UBCM, there were several suppliers of playground equipment. So when I, chatted with them and talked about accessibility with them. And what I found is that only one out of the three, I think, that I talked to really seemed to have an understanding of what components should be in an accessible playground. And so, I kind of got into arguments with them. No, but they were adamant that engineered wood chips were totally accessible. There's no problem with them. Well, that's not what I'm getting. Oh, no, this is a standard now. And so the sense that I got from them is they want to sell equipment to municipalities who probably their biggest clients. And they know that municipalities are strapped for budget. And so they will, perhaps recommend things that, will make them happy, but are not really totally accessible. So I think, sometimes we assume that we'll put out maybe an RFP to say, we want you to provide an accessible playground and leave it to them to decide. So I think as we get more knowledgeable and you guys are gathering all this information, to be more specific in our request for proposals in terms of what we want to see so that we get back, better options. Yeah.
I looked at the playground design. Are you familiar with Harper's Playground? Awesome. Yeah. Laurie.
Just a couple things. I think what we're starting to see and for is, around climate change. So, when looking at open space parks or even trail systems, an area where people can go under the shade and just relax, sit, because we are seeing quite a change in that. I'd also like to see some interpretive signage where we can. I think this is a great opportunity to educate the public, our community, on, historical facts or plants or anything like that. I mean, it always, again, talking about, David, you said about the experiences. So if there's an area in our park system that has a unique experience to share a story, I think it's really important. That's where it'd be really great to bring into our First Nation communities some of their stories that, that they could share around their plant system, around their whole culture. I think that would be really great to see. And I think the other thing too is where we can see many generational opportunities. So, we can go as with different ages and get a different experience out of our parks and trail systems.
Right. Councilor Doogie?
Thank you. And Lorraine brings up a great point around sort of the park and space and open space design. And we had talked about this with the breather upgrades. And the district has a tree canopy density target. And so using the tree fund and the trees as part of that, I think is an opportunity for us to look at expanding the tree canopy, as well as providing that shade opportunity when we're looking at this also from the climate lens for users. But again, also recognizing where that's being put in so that all users can benefit from it. It's one thing if you've got a copse of trees put out in a grassy area, but if people aren't able to access it from a mobility standpoint, then it doesn't benefit everybody.
Charlie?
Just to add on what Gord is saying and about tree canopies and shading and all of these things, a lot of people with disabilities, their bodies are not able to control temperature. So, an extreme heat or cold change, their bodies can't adapt to that as easily. So if they were out in a park and all of a sudden we're starting to have an episode because of dysreflexia or something because of that, it is nice to have those shaded areas or something where there can be some relief on that. So I think that's a huge component. Although it's climate, it is also accessibility as well.
Any other thoughts?
I'll just throw one other out there. Multisensory. We've got the playgrounds and the scenery and all that, but Vanessa can't see the scenery. She can hear the trees or the plants, smell the different flowers or the different scents that are out there, and just another element to the experience.
Okay, moving on, there's a few more questions here. However, I think we've done a really good job of covering a lot of this. We've had some fantastic discussion. Weird. So we've talked about this one. What are the different accessibility groups and experts that we should be consulting with when developing our parks and trails master plan? There's some really good suggestions there. Then I know the Garth Homer Society, different groups like Power to Be Adventure Therapy really do a lot of work in this field. They'd be some great groups. Was there any other ones that we haven't discussed yet?
What about RAD?
Yeah, Rad Society, Snell Bolt. Yeah.
Heard that name before. What's RAD?
Recreation Adaptation Society.
And boy, you don't want to mess with her.
No, she makes me look like a puppy dog.
She makes David and I look calm.
How about the Rick Hansen Foundation?
For sure.
There's some resources there.
Yeah, some resources there.
I kind of ran hot and cold on the Rick Hansen stuff. A lot of it comes down to who you're actually working with as a consultant too from the foundation. But with RAD, I believe they got a lot of the equipment when Recreation Integration Victoria folded.
Hey, recreation integration, are they good people to tap into? In terms of consultation?
They're not there anymore.
They're not there, yeah.
Oh, they're not?
No, they folded and RAD Society picked up a lot of the equipment.
Okay.
But Tanel is a great resource for kids.
How about the White Cane Club?
Yeah.
Potentially, if you want to get more input, and Jennifer, they operate out of the Shoal Center once a month, I think they meet.
The White King Club?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first Thursday of the month or the second Thursday. I can't remember. I don't know if a lot of them go into Central Saanich, and they're also 65 plus, a lot of them. I'm definitely the youngest one by a lot. You could.
I think getting just input from users,
Yeah.
with lived experience
Yeah.
is really important.
Because they know that.
And wearing my other hat, one of my other hats, I'll extend an invitation from the Community Association, Central Saanich Community Association as well, because I'm coming and talk to one of our meetings.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We had Megan at one of our sessions that we held too, so, but happy to come, perhaps even.
Yeah.
Then I think the last two we've covered quite well. What can we best address, especially what can we best address accessibility Peninsula? Fantastic suggestions on that one as well.
So we can do those in order.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's hard to predict which way the conversation goes. Before we jump to this one, you want to just do a quick check in if there's anything else?
Yeah. If there's anything else we've missed that you want to share with us at this time, just emphasizes the slices, there'll be other opportunities, but before we move on.
And if you have an awesome idea outside of this, feel free to contact us.
So, just one question. So it was on the previous slide about, Peninsula wide, and that we talked a lot about sharing of information, and Panorama was doing the study. And I guess what I'm wondering is that will staff automatically, like, so when, say, Sydney goes to do our review of our parks master plan, would it be kind of just a normal course of business that we would go to Central Saanich, North Saanich and say, hey, give us your notes? Or is it helpful for the committee to give direction that we think there should be sort of a common approach or resources compiled for regional use?
I would say it's helpful for the community to do that. We do it though at the staff level, but to do it at city council table and have some recommendation from SPAAC to go back to the various councils does help council direct that, and then some of the resources could be put towards that. We talked with Corey. I've met with Ben Martin, the director of engineering at North Saanich multiple times on this, so we are communicating, but having it come from this committee always helps that situation.
And I think as things evolve over time too, it's good to do touch bases as things change and new information and other ideas come up. It's not a bad thing to revisit.
Okay, so, well, I'll make a motion that the committee recommends that the municipalities and the Panorama Recreation Center work together in compiling resources and common approaches in our parks and trails system. Is that correct? What do you think, Corey?
Pretty broad there.
Well, I know, the thing that's always a struggle is, not wanting to be super specific, but to get the idea across, without kind of, making it more complicated, because it sounds like there's stuff going on already, but
what I found happens in processes is city staff have been invited to participate in this process, and we provide sort of our perspective on things. I think next time around, city's updating our parks master plan. We've got staff in Central Saanich who have, essentially leveled up by here and other places. And that information that they've kind of gleaned from all these publication opportunities is sort of contained within the staff. And when we invite Central Saanich staff next time to participate in city's process, they bring that perspective automatically. I'm not sure where we keep.
So I guess what I'm envisioning is some sort of document where
I think that's where
it would be like codified, like, although, you guys are gonna come up with stuff, and then when Sydney starts looking at things, we're gonna say, hey, can we look at what you did? I'll pull that in and maybe we'll tweak it and maybe North Saanich will have some more stuff. But to have it as sort of like a codified somewhere so that, you know, if you're not here 5 years from now, or nobody knows where your notes are, that it's all in one place to say, here's our common approach. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. So I don't know if the wording of that captures that or not. Is that?
I think the collaboration, I think, is key to it. I think that's, you know, we definitely work together, as Corey's saying. All of the information that we collect through this and what we heard reported goes to council, so it'll be on the council agenda, and our records management component is pretty strong and required to be, so 5-10 years from now, that information can all be found.
Yeah, but it's hard to find. And so
Sometimes
that's,
it is, yeah.
so what did I say again?
The committee recommends that municipalities and Panorama Recreation Center work together in compiling resources and common approaches with parks and trails systems.
Oh, can I say, okay, make it more specific then, and that they compile a document that
As a document of resources and common approaches for parks and trails systems.
I see, Sandy's, maybe got a.
Isn't that all part of the municipalities, work and that they actually create and have those same elements in them?
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that it's good to have it all like in one place. Here is our common approach on the Saanich Peninsula in terms of accessibility things, or not necessarily this is the way you have to do it, but based on all of the input and stuff that you've had, here's considerations. Here's the things that we will all consider. And if we come up with a standardized system of how we grade parks or trail surfaces, that this is our common way of going about accessibility in our parks. So that you don't have to be somebody saying, hey, I remember Central Saanich back in 2024 did their parks, you know, let's find that information, that it's all in one place, and that as things change, that it can be updated.
Just to suggest, we've got in our database, we've got a specific folder for our parks plans, and within that, sort of by year, and we also have a sort of general document repository as well. I just wonder if, you know, it's as simple as from an operational perspective, Central Saanich wanted to share their, what we heard, community engagement summary document. But that's something we could very specifically set aside and Saanich's as well. And we give those a review next time, so we get their data. So that's the kind of sharing very specifically. That sort of meets the intent of their recommendation. Motion.
Yeah, we can try that, I guess, and maybe something more will come out of the Panorama does their review, and I'm actually thinking that maybe that's where it will end up in the end. If Panorama's going to do all that research, but Panorama might do that for them.
I don't know if the consultants.
I'm kind of not doing very good governance here, because I think I was supposed to get a second different motion for this section, but. Maybe that's right. Sorry, Laura Hain?
Yeah, and well, I just wanted to comment that first of all, with OCPs or any kind of strategic plans, what I've found is that there's a lot of sharing that goes on with Central Saanich and North Saanich and Sydney. And, you know, they're very good in terms of reaching out to us as stakeholders, et cetera. I would suggest, you know, if the committee could wait to see how things unfold in terms of the needs assessment going forward, because at our commission, and Phil, you can jump in anytime, because you also where that at.
Yeah.
You know, the whole idea is to streamline the recreation services and facilities under the peninsula. And I think that's kind of sort of where we're going with this.
Okay.
We just don't know what that looks like right now.
Okay.
We do know that what we're looking at are recreational. So what I mean by is like playing fields, not necessarily green spaces, not necessarily, you know, it may look different as we go through the process with the consultant, but those recommendations would come back to the commission, and on the commission, the 3 mayors sit and council members. So I think if I could suggest, if we can kind of wait through that process, because there's a lot of kind of moving parts right now. And I'm sure that information will come back to this committee for sure.
Yeah.
But Bill, I
No, I
don't.
was doing one of these over here.
Yeah.
I was gonna suggest that as well, because we are just starting that process. And to have 2, you know, I think it's completely offsetting of what Central Saanich is doing with their master plan. Should something come from this group? Absolutely. But I think we need to wait to see, and I'm happy to keep pushing that at the rec commission side as well. And then it comes back, because that also is gonna end up here, and I think we're just getting a little ahead of where we're ready to be ahead of, right? Like, we're not quite there yet, and we're gonna spin our wheels a little bit to move something like that at this point, right? So, not to say it's not gonna come forward this year, because it will, but I think we need to wait for that process to play out, because then it will higher level, and then it'll tie into here, and it'll then filter its way into the districts themselves. And I'm sure the staff will put on that as well. So that might be a conversation to bring back for our next meeting, to talk about something like that at this next meeting outside of Saanich.
Okay, so I don't think we need to be specific about a document. And yeah, but getting to the previous staff comment about, it's not a bad idea to just say that the committee recommends that we take a regional approach. So maybe that's just the way to go, and leave it sort of more open, that just that the committee recommends that this kind of regional approach be taken, which was, I think, the original motion, and just leave it at that, and just say we support that.
Just wondering if that motion could be misinterpreted to mean more.
Okay, you know, I'll withdraw the motion. We'll keep that for another day then, because yeah, the comments made about there's other things kind of going on and panorama, so.
And I think what you're suggesting is already.
Yeah.
From my experience with the community association and having worked through the OCP process with Central Saanich and a few other things, I do see that there's a lot of collaboration and communication with staff between the municipalities. So in a lot of ways, we are getting a regional approach. I can see the desire to sort of codify it someplace, but I think I agree with postponing it to see.
Yeah,
we need to
so I
get
think it does need to be done in the future. And I'll just say, one reason for that is years ago in Sydney, there was a member of council who was, you know, she was in a wheelchair, and she really pushed the accessibility sort of thing, Jeanette Hughes, right? And so a lot of things got done at that time. And there's some things that were codified, like 20% adaptable units is in our zoning bylaw, but other things just kind of after she left, you know, unless you had somebody that was there pushing it, you know, things just, we kind of forget about things. Now we have accessibility committee, but even so, I think it's important that, you know, staff currently are really engaged and committed to that, I think. But as time goes by, I think it's just good to have something kind of written down in terms of accessibility. This is how we operate.
Shirley?
I just want to add to that. Like, I know where Terry's coming on this, because again, I'm going in 41 years disabled. So I have seen changeover of different governments, different councils, different people. And I know Jeanette. And I'm going to a meeting after I leave here, people that probably under our belts, we've got 500 years of disability under our belts. And quite often, a lot of our conversation goes to things that we thought were handled and in the books and ready to happen have been forgotten. Because you get new people coming in, and it's a new retraining thing because they just think it's already been dealt with, and it's but new societal changes, new designs and standards change, and the accessibility format of that has been forgotten in those changes. So I kind of get the whole idea of like, we want to make sure that this is in place. Right now, we've got council, we've got staff, we've got people that are aware and doing it. But in 5 years, do we have to start all over again and redo it? So I get where we're coming from, and yes, maybe this is a bit soon, but I think there is a need for this to be solidified somewhere so that 10 years down the road, we've got a new person with a disability coming in and saying, well, we thought that things were accessible, but they're not anymore. They backslid, because that's what has happened. These people I'm going to talk to this afternoon, I can guarantee you our conversation at some point is going to say, you know, I used to be able to do this, but I can't anymore because it changed. So that is a topic that needs to, like, say, codify it, do whatever to say this is how it's done.
I'm just mindful of time here. So just one thought that I'll put out to staff and to the committee members is perhaps in the master plan itself, there could be a statement about coordination or collaboration with our neighboring municipalities and developing a peninsula regional approach. Just a thought to try to keep it simple. So I'll let you guys
wrap up here. Yeah, so next steps on this project is we're still undergoing our analysis of our current park system, looking at individual parks and their attributes, as well as the parks needs assessment. So looking at growth projections over the next 10 to 20 years and ensuring that parks we have serve the needs of our community, and if they don't, where we need to either expand our parks or expand facilities in our parks. Community input that we have gathered through this process will help us with that first draft. And then we will be repeating this engagement. We'll be coming back to this table at least, I would anticipate 2 more times, perhaps more than that, depending on where we're going and the input we're hearing. And then as we go towards the end of this project, finalizing the plan. And then one follow-up project we've identified is a new parks and trail user guide. And then resident in North Saanich, and when I moved there 7 years ago, North Saanich has this really amazing park guide. It's a PDF document that I've used that as an example that I would like to build off of for Central Saanich, but enhance it with everything for accessibility and more details, perhaps web-based, but as a starting point, if you haven't seen that guide, it's quite good for parks and trails. So yeah, that's where we're at, and thank you very much for listening to us today and for your input. And just for your information, there's we have a project website, which is let's talk centralsaanich.ca/parks and trails, and a parks email address where you can send us information or share it with colleagues. Parks plan at centralsaanich.ca or csaanich.ca.
Thank you, Mike, very much, Jarrett and Kyle. Appreciate your time.
Good.
And something that I'll just highlight from that, the Let's Talk Central Saanich website. So that's the primary community engagement portal for the municipality. Each municipality has one. And what's the North Saanich?
Connected North Saanich.
So Connect North Saanich, and the Sydney one is. Oh, still working on it?
We have.
Yeah.
Really, it ended and we were kind of an approach to do something else, but we did have one in the past. What was it called? City says. No, I can't remember. My brain is- But we're working on a new.
I can show it to you quickly. If you'd like to see what it like. There. But
Councilor Newton, while we're working here. Gordon's got his hand up.
Just I'm afraid I have to leave. I've got pile of work ahead of me, unfortunately. Still up in Port McNeil, so thank you. And I just didn't want to sneak out the back door, but thank you, everyone there today.
Thanks, Gordon. Can I ask you, Jared? I'm thinking, we've only got 20 minutes left, so, okay, and Lorraine's gonna head out as well there, so, I'm sorry, I'll share this. Yeah,
no worries.
so we'll move on to the next item, which is the Access Awareness Committee. Jennifer.
Yes, so each year we celebrate Access Awareness Week. It's May 26th to June 1st. And we've in the past had an accessibility fair at the Show Center. Since COVID, we've kind of done a little bit of a lower scale version of it, more geared towards seniors. And this year we want to open it up and have a larger scale accessibility fair at the Show Center. We do get some funding from the town of Sydney. Thank you very much for that, to put this on. And we invite a lot of different groups in Victoria that can bring information and we usually have a ton of information, but not a whole lot of people that come out. And so we're thinking about how to restructure it so that it's a really inspirational and informative event. And we have identified that in the past we've had speakers, but the speakers, the way that we had set up the room, you couldn't really hear the speakers. There was just too much going on. So we're going to set up a little bit different at Shoal, and our vision is to have about 5 to 6 speakers over the period of from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on a Saturday. It's going to be June 1st. And we'd like to get speakers with different perspectives and challenges, and emphasize the support and resources that are available for people with the same disabilities that they have. One person that we've reached out to is Kim Scott, who is 29 years old. She's an equestrian, a local equestrian with cerebral palsy, who's trying to get to the Olympics. And a couple other ideas that we have is there's a visually impaired senior lawn bowler in Nanaimo. So, you know, we would hope that these people would come and just share stories of their lived experience and inspire other people that may be facing the same type of disability. And then at the same time, have the information fair, invite all the vendors and have just a ton of information for people to come and get. So our biggest challenge is getting people to know about the fair. And so we would like to start a committee of people that would be interested in helping us just kind of put this together, brainstorm about different people that we could ask to come. We would need to start fairly quickly, and help market the event and create a poster and just really reach out into Victoria to as early as possible so that people know about this event, to know that they can come and just get a ton of information about services that are available. So I will leave that up to you. In the past, we have had a representative from the town of Sydney. I'm not sure if we will or not this year. There's 2 of us at Shoal. And so just if you have the time or know of somebody who might want to be involved with planning this, we'll have a meeting probably in early February to get things started. So I'll send information out about that, and people can contact me for that.
I'll bring it up at what I'm going to this afternoon.
Okay.
Well, and Tanel might be around. She grew up over here.
So.
Councillor O'Keefe.
So last year, you used that time for kind of like focus on seniors. So are you still going to have a specific seniors event, you know, like that one you had last year?
I mean, we have lots of opportunity to share what we're doing. We do it quite a bit. We'll have information about what we do. We may speak too and just share with the community resources that we have for seniors. Because a lot of our resources are expanding as well. We have new services, like we have a seniors housing navigator who just started in August and has been incredibly busy with helping and housing seniors that are in real vulnerable positions. So it's always really good to get the word out about that. So we'll probably dedicate some of the speaking space to us to be able to speak to it.
But I wondered whether I had heard that you were going to have a specific, senior, sort of like a show open house where seniors could come, learn about all your services, the different supports that are available in the community. Will that still?
Yeah, we do that every year in
Okay.
September.
Okay, because the reason I asked is so the Canadian Federation of University Women came to council. I think all of our councils asking for money because they wanted to put on a fair that would, where seniors could come and learn about all the services available to them in the community. So it sounded like it duplicated what you were. Is that the same sort of thing, or?
It's the same sort of thing, and it just rings true to what we do every day.
Okay.
Seniors really come to be the hub of the community for seniors in Sydney, and they come to Shoal for a ton of information about various things.
So it sounds like your seniors, your open house seniors fair, what they're proposing to do is what you're already. Okay, so it's a duplication.
And a little plug for Shoal Centers, you're part of Beacon Community Services, right? So there's the new service center that just opened
In Central Saanich, yes, we've been very busy with that. That's been a great collaboration, and it's going to be manned by volunteers. Right now, it's staffing volunteers until they feel really comfortable being there. But 2 volunteers on shift at a time. We're open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, probably Saturday, starting this week as well. And just there to provide information to people in Central Saanich. It's a wonderful location because there's a lot of people that come through to go to the library there. So we're right there with our table and lots of really good conversations. And not just about seniors, Beacon has a lot of different programs. We have daycares and we have employment services and a lot of things that people may not know what we do and may need information.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Jennifer? No? Okay, we'll move on to Vanessa and your app.
I was just gonna say, if you ever see me with an earbud in or anything, it's because my app can read to me pieces of paper that are in front of me or read to me the
That's cool.
agendas and stuff. So please don't think I'm being rude and tuning you out and listening to a game on my headphone or something.
Tell us if you were, but.
I'm just trying to see what's in front of me.
How does it work to read you a piece of paper?
There's this app called Seeing AI, and I hold it above and it will read me
Like
everything.
it scans it?
Yeah.
I went out
That's wild.
went out for lunch with Vanessa and she's reading the menu.
The menu.
with her
Great.
with her thing.
Learn how to pronounce all those fancy
cool.
words, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I turn on, sometimes it'll tell me 18 people in the room and stuff like that, or the lights are on or off, so.
But
Yeah, really? It tells you how many people are in a room?
Yeah.
How can it detect that? That's cool.
AI.
You always gotta solve.
Yeah.
You always gotta solve.
Fair enough. So,
I gave my mail by myself now.
are you cool to stick around and show people the app after Vanessa?
Pardon?
Are you cool to stick around a few minutes and show people what the app does after the meeting?
Yeah, I have a cab coming, but if I'm still, yeah, if we are.
She has
yeah.
a cab coming at 12. So
Okay, we'll try to finish this up. Right on. So the next item is public feedback. Was there? I don't think there.
not there, not today.
Not today, okay, so we can check that one off, but that brings us to number 11. Oh,
Can I just ask a question on the
Yeah.
public feedback? So I know the process in Sydney is, so people send the feedback forms in and our staff, do whatever needs to be done, give them a response, and then they forward them to staff. I'm just wondering what kind of process it is for Central Saanich and North Saanich. Do they do, are they doing the same, like?
Yeah, so we had, I think, pre-read the deadline, but our staff were just preparing a response, so we wanted to wait until we had that full response rather than just saying, here's an email and put Emily on the spot to try and answer it. So that is our process as well. We're just looking around.
Yeah, on our website, I didn't bring it up, but our website's up and running as well.
Okay.
With the link for it, so we just all follow up with Rachel about.
Yeah, and then they will come back on the SPAC agenda, just kind of
Yeah, whatever the response was, yeah.
for information.
I'm going to see more and more with prescribed organizations, like the school district has theirs up and running now. as well. So
Yeah.
if you need to refer them to another organization.
Friendly compliance.
Or not.
Go on.
Then we are.
I made sure of that. Emily made sure, Corey made sure.
So last item on the agenda, if I can get a motion to adjourn. Councilor Batista, seconded by Chairman Groom, all in favor? Is anyone opposed? That opposed, all right, thank you very much.